Morning, everybody. This is such an important message that I might be over a little bit al hasogus gvul. I might be violating some copyright or something to a certain extent, but I think it's so important. And of course, the person I received this from, one of my students sent this to me, and they sent me a book which I don't know if they were supposed to send me. I don't know if it was published yet. It's an anonymous book, but it has here a quote from the Chalvan. So it's from his sefer, the Chalvan Zechur Livrocha, sniffed a few years ago, or a year or two ago, I guess. An amazing thing that I think is very important to share. It's a mitzvah to share this. Shemati, I heard. So he's not quoting a source here, but it's so important to bring this out. Shemoharan me Breslov. Shahaya Choyla Shachafas Areya. Right? So he said he heard about Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, that when he was ill, he had the tuberculosis, which he died from. Right? He left this world at a young age, younger than I am now, from tuberculosis, right? Yoda, he knew. Shetrufase Esev Hagruz, that there was that he could use for medicinal purposes to cure his illness. He could use an herb, a grass herb, which the Chalvan is understanding that this is, because in the context of where he's speaking and who he's speaking to, that this is marijuana. He did not want to use it. Mishum ruach hatuma sheboy, because of the spirit of impurity that is in it. L'chein lo'haya lo'refua. And so he was moiser nefesh. He actually he allowed himself to die rather than to smoke or ingest. I don't know what means he was trying to take this in, but rather than even using for medicinal purposes, he died rather than to use marijuana for medicinal purposes. We see, first of all, how great the tzaddikim were because of the Ruach HaTumah Shabo. Because he didn't want to live with a spirit of impurity. It wasn't worth it for him to live with a Ruach HaTumah, with a spirit of impurity. And then interesting, v'hoisef v'kilo es hagruz hatzomeich ba'uman shalo yiha lo'koyach hamishtaker. An interesting thing, he said that he cursed all of the marijuana or whatever this herb was. I'm not sure if that's what it was exactly, but the point is it's really the same thing. Because of he cursed it that it should no longer cause people to become intoxicated. V'ad hayom hu, kain hu, and until this day in Uman, whatever grows there doesn't have this quality. And the Chalvan says, Lanias Daiti, in my humble opinion, hu me'ein de pa'or. He says that taking marijuana is like a type of idolatry, like Baal Pa'or, which was a type of idolatry that people would become intoxicated to the point where they'd lose control of their bowels, and they would defecate on their idol. Shagorim liyetzer hefkeris. This leads a person to just be loose and without any discretion. And the author who was bringing this here, again, who was anonymous, or else I would quote him. The author, he says there, he brings the Gemara that the Benos Mayav also they used drugs to entice the men, the Bnei Israel, to sin, and that's what caused thousands of Israelites to die in the book of Numbers. V'yizor lo lishoin b'cheder echad im oisam shenimshtamshu v'chnis behem ruach ra bar minan. And then also the Chalvan adds that his opinion is that one should not sleep in the same room. Let's say you're in a yeshiva dorm and there's someone else who uses this, even if they're not using in the room. You should not sleep in the same room as such a person who brings in such a spirit of tumah without any exception. So a lot of people, they want to claim that there's some Hasidic, from the early Hasidic masters, connection to marijuana use or other drug usage. And the truth of the matter is no. Rebbe Nachman not only didn't use it, but he specifically avoided using it, even for medicinal purposes. And I'm not saying that halachically one is not allowed to use for medicinal purposes if they have a responsible doctor who is giving proper guidance and treatment and so forth. However, there is absolutely no halachic permission to use something like this for recreational purposes. And also, it's foolish that some people believe that this is somehow a form of Oneg Shabbos or a means of attaining some kind of a spiritual loftiness. That's not how these things work. In fact, it's just the opposite, because there's a ruach tumah, there's a spirit of impurity in it, actually, and this author here quotes one of my teachers, someone who I only met once in person, but someone who I learned from a lot, Rabbi Ariel Bar Tzadok. He mentions, and it's not his chiddush, but it's worthwhile to repeat, the Davar B'Shem Omro. It's an obvious thing also, that a person who engages in these types of behaviors opens themselves up to really demonic possession, to dibukim, to all kinds of things that are dangerous to the body and to the soul. And so we have to be very careful not to use these things, but also not to be fooled. This is the trick of the Yetzer Hara, is to fool someone to think they're doing a mitzvah. And also, the big thing I want to bring out here is because so many of the hippie chevra, they're very into Rebbe Nachman, right? But this is Rebbe Nachman, even if it's not in the Sforim, even if it's just a quote, but it's a story from a reliable source. Even if it isn't historically true, the fact that a tzaddik like the Chalvan said something like this, again, I'm not talking in a halachic sense. I'm talking in the spiritual sense. I'm talking in a musar sense. It should be sufficient for a person to recognize that he should not be using these things, and that it's not a tool to come closer to the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's actually a tool of Avodah Zarah, and it is an Isser Gomor for non-medicinal uses, and we see here a Midas Chasidus that to avoid even for medicinal uses. Obviously, everything has to be taken on a case-by-case basis. and we're not Rebbe Nachman as far as a life or death situation. We probably already have plenty of ruach hatuma in us, but that we have to get rid of from other things. But I think it's a mitzvah to be mefarsim this, because it's not our derech, and it's not a derech of Chassidus, and it's not a derech of tzidkus, it's not a derech of tzadikim, and it's just the opposite. It's a derech of avodah zorah, of gilui arayos, of potential shvichas damim, potential gezel. All kinds of isurim can come through this. And we know many poskim have made it clear that it's an actual isser to be mishtamish with these things, and we shouldn't fool ourselves to think there's some kind of a mesorah for it that was lost or this or that. No, it's not. It's totally usur. I don't know why I had a service for this other than that I received this from my friend in South America. He sent this to me and he was asking me what my opinion is, and I agreed very strongly. I mean, I've seen it myself. Rabim ipilu, chalolim ipilu. So it's something that we have to take very seriously, and not to fall into these traps. I didn't sleep all night, and I was up and I was reading this Kabbalah. I read the whole Sefer, and I hope that it gets a wide distribution, because it's a tremendous mitzvah to be mefarsim, especially now things are becoming legalized, that by us and by any God-fearing person, we should not be mishtamish with these things. We shouldn't be using these things. If the world, they want, I mean, I don't believe anyone should be going to prison for using these things. And I think people should be able to have the freedom on their own, not to have the government telling them yes or no. But that's a different story. The government doesn't have to tell us yes or no, just like the government doesn't have to tell us not to eat chazer, not to eat pork. Government doesn't have to tell us not to use this drug, certainly not for recreational purposes. And unfortunately, there are many Jewish people that call themselves rabbis, even people that are frum, maybe people who are rabbis, some of them, who are trying to profit off of these things and so forth. And you have to think, I don't want to be ma'or any dinim, but we have to think twice about what we're doing when we're getting involved in these things, and we shouldn't be ashamed to make a machoah that this is asur. Now, of course, it's not chazer, but nonetheless, it's asur because shmartem moed l'nafshesechem. The science is very mixed about these things. A lot of people have imagined ideas about these things, and they're not getting the full story, because they're hearing only one side, and I've heard both sides. But for us, especially if someone wants to identify themselves in some form of Hasidic, and of course Rebbe Nachman is very popular among the neo-Hasidic world, meaning the non-Haredi Hasidim, whether the modern Orthodox Hasidim or the non-Orthodox Hasidic philosophers and so forth, and a lot of people from all of these Chetzeres, including from Inzera, are unfortunately falling into this trap, and we have to learn and understand that it's totally, totally prohibited. It is not the derech tzaddikim, and it's something that we have to try to avoid. I'm sorry, I'm a little rambling. I'm also a little tired. Didn't sleep all night, but this I felt is important to share, and so this is what the Chalvan says: Iser gomer me'atorah l'shtamish b'samim kalim. Yesh behem ruch tumah v'gorem l'fgam bris b'mezid. Oy b'shogeg l'chol mi shikach oisam bein ish ben isha. Right. So this is something that's important, because a lot of people are fooled by this, and it's a big chilul Hashem. So we can be mekadesh Shem Shemayim by telling the truth that it's a Isser Gomer min Torah, and al pi Kabbalah and al pi Chasidus and al pi Musar, it's totally Asur, and people who are trapped in this should look for help, try to get out of it, because it's really not. And I have a lot of friends who are involved in these things, and Baruch Hashem, they they're getting out of it. Baruch Hashem, I can say I never knowingly took any of these things, and I'm a big sinner, and I've done a lot of bad stuff in my life. But Baruch Hashem, that's one thing I never indulged in, and it's important to and for those who did, I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying, this is something I guess I can feel comfortable talking about, because Baruch Hashem, but I've been around it. I've been around people using these things, and it's a big chilul Hashem if a frum person uses this, or someone who's trying to wave the banner of Torah on your Shemayim. If someone is a different religion, there's some kind of, they're Native American, they're Wiccan, something like that. That's their business. Aber beim Insider, this is not ours. This is from Shlosh Klipos Tameis, She'ein Bo Aliyah, and we have to stay away from these things. This is not for us, and it's a chilul Hashem to claim that it is, and it's just I never, Baruch Hashem, I never really even had the Yetzer Hara to try it, because I hate the smell of it. I hate everything about it. I think it should be legal, just because I have more of a libertarian view of these types of things politically. But again, it's the same thing. I don't think pork should be illegal either. But for us Jews, we can't eat pork. It's the same thing. And I would extend, this is different than pork, because I would say any really God-fearing person of any religion shouldn't want to be engaging in these things, unless whatever. If they come from a different tradition, it's not my business, and it's their tradition. Okay, it's not my business to tell them not to. But for someone who, whether they're a Jew or Ben Noach, or even someone from another religion, it could be a Christian, but you want to know what does the rabbi think, what is my opinion, or it could be a different religion, you want to know my opinion, it's better to avoid these things. I'm not saying to avoid medicinally, but we see that some of the tzaddikim, they avoided it medicinally even, I know, I'll tell you something. Someone very close to me, it's my wife, the Gioris, right? People know. And she grew up in the Mormon church, and she said, when she was a child in the Sunday school, they said how great Joseph Smith was that he wouldn't take a shot of whiskey before they did the operation on him because he understood it to be prohibited, the word of wisdom. So therefore, he wouldn't take alcohol. And so he suffered in pain rather than taking it. And my wife said that when she was a child, she said, well, that's stupid. And, all right. We put that aside. If they have a reason, then it's not stupid. And so Rebbe Nachman, he had a reason why. Because of Ruach Tumah Shabbat. So it's not stupid. That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about Joseph Smith here. I'm talking about Rebbe Nachman. Why Rebbe Nachman, L'havdol Alfei Avdolas, was not stupid? It's because he had an answer. It's a Ruach Tumah Shabbat. All right. I meant this to mamish be a 1-minute video that should be like a short, and it's already more than 20 minutes. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you later. Maybe I'll make another video as a short.